Hello everyone, good afternoon. Welcome to Byjus Exam Prep IAS. Welcome to the Hindu analysis of 28 June 2024. Let us look at the articles that we are going to cover today. The first article is with regards to net damage. It's an editorial and what is happening between India, Sri Lanka, the fisherman issue. On that, this article is there, and some unfortunate news coming where there is a death of a Sri Lankan sailor, and with that also the arrest of around 10 fishermen of India. So we shall be looking into that. Already have covered this article twice, but then again we shall be seeing this. Second, Riyasi and the years-old issue of cross-border terror. We shall see what is the nefarious design of the militants, what they are trying to do and what they have done in the past. So we shall see, and also we'll look here with regards to the approach of Pakistan administration, specifically the politicians like Nawaz Sharif, in the past Benazir Bhutto, all these. Third, economy robust despite global risks. So we shall see some good news and great news coming from our economy. Moving ahead beyond this, one is India and US in talks for Striker infantry vehicles. We shall see 2-3 vehicles, missiles that we are trying to import from US. So for prelims that can be important. Second, another coup attempt there in Bolivia in South America, but this time it failed, and a Bolivian general arrested after failed coup attempt. So we shall look into this. Can be very important from IR perspective for prelims. Third, a playbook to handle gestational diabetes better. So you all know diabetes type 1, type 2, and there is a gestational diabetes also, which is usually associated with the ladies who are pregnant. They suffer from this. Fourth, Uttarakhand government to study risk posed by 13 glacial lakes during monsoon. So, small news from environment, Uttarakhand. And the fifth one, antelope-like mammal from Bhutan recorded at lowest elevation in western Assam. So, interesting news coming from Assam. So these are the 8 topics that we are going to cover. These all 5 are very, very small topics. Some points would be there in the third one, otherwise very small. And the first 3 are slightly lengthy. But then today's newspaper, not very, substantial in that sense. Okay, let us look at the topic. As I said, this is related to India, Sri Lanka. What has happened? The resumption has happened with regards to fishing of the India's eastern coast, including Park Bay. Usually for an annual 61-day there is a ban on fishing, and this time after this resumption, as I said at the very beginning, a sailor from Sri Lankan Navy has died. So this is a news of around June 25th. Sri Lankan Navy was trying to chase away Indian fishermen from the Sri Lankan waters near Jaffna. Now, there one person died. They also arrested 10 fishermen, 8 of them from Tamil Nadu, rest from Andhra Pradesh, and a trawler vessel was also impounded. Now, as you understand, the Tamil Nadu's Chief Minister, Mr. Stalin, urged Foreign Minister, Mr. Jaishankar, to intervene in this matter. Mr. Jaishankar, on his part, what he replied was that the government is already trying to get the early release of 34 fishermen who are there in Sri Lankan judicial custody, and 6 fishermen who are serving sentences over there. Now, please understand, in this editorial it is written that this is an opportunity for the 2 countries, of course India and Sri Lanka, to revive the negotiation process exclusively to deal with the fisheries dispute, which usually became aggravated in the wake of 74 and 76 bilateral agreements to demarcate the maritime boundary lines. Usually, after this, when the boundary lines were demarcated, these issues have started to creep. And in this article, they are writing that Mr. Stalin would do good to remind Mr. Jaishankar to convene a meeting of, I'm writing here, joint working group. This meeting last time happened 2 years ago. Now, See, this is an old topic. We have earlier also said that our fishermen, they crossing this maritime boundary, there is no doubt illegal. But why do they do it? They do it for the livelihood opportunities. And we should remember, along with this livelihood opportunity thing, the preservation of the marine ecosystem is also very, very important. For this, what has to be done is gradually there should be all the bottom trawlers which are being used by Tamil Nadu fishermen, they should get replaced. The fisher folk require time to prepare for this diversification, whether it is deep sea fishing, marine cage farming, seaweed cultivation, processing, sea ranching. For all this, the fishermen, they do need what? Time. And this article says that in the past, the experiences of the people with regards to the project carried out by both the Tamil Nadu as well as the central government has been a failure. They are saying in the last 7 years, with regards to the implementation of, there is a project going on under which only 61 deep sea fishing vessels have been handed over to the fishermen, and 19 other are being constructed. So they are saying that the pace at which this is happening is absolutely very, very slow. So that's why they are saying both the central plus the state government's initiative is basically failure. Apart from that, they are also, talking about the cost factor. See here. See. It is written, it would be thoughtful if the central government or the union government clubs the project with an all India program where the unit cost of deep sea fishing is 40 lakh higher, at least to get a better response even at this stage. The unit cost of deep sea fishing vessel under the central state project is 80 lakh, whereas under the state it is 40. So if it is, linked with that, it would be very, very clear, good. And again, do not forget the humanitarian issue. Do try to get the fishermen released as early as possible. So this is the crux of this topic. Remember, under India, Sri Lanka, do mention one point, the fisherman issue. And what exactly is the issue with the fishermen? That you should be, having the idea about. Moving ahead. Mr. Vivek Kadzu, retired Indian Foreign Service officer, writes, Riyasi and the years-old issue of cross-border terrorism. Now, let me tell you. You all know, recently, there was a terrorist attack at Riyasi. When did this attack happen? On June 9th. Same day when Prime Minister Mr. Narendra Modi was taking his oath for third time. And Mr. Kadzu says that this is a reminder of an attack on the Consulate General of India, which happened in Herat, Afghanistan on May 23rd, 3 days before his first swearing in. So you can see here I have mentioned this whole point here. So clearly what does this show? Doing this time on the day on which the swearing in ceremony is happening. 10 years ago, doing it 3 days before the swearing in ceremony is happening. Through this, it is clearly, that the terrorists, through these attacks, they are trying to give a message, or they have one objective, that is they are trying to embarrass and enrage Mr. Modi and India on a day which is of great political significance. Unfortunately, just to give you an idea, in this Riyasi attack, 9 people lost their life. They were all pilgrims. 41 they were injured. Last time when they had attacked Herat, the ITBP personals had, thwarted this attempt of the, terrorists. So this is the introduction that Mr. Kadzu talks about here. Now, going into this, he says that if you look at the separatists, if you look at the terrorists who are operating in Jammu and Kashmir, including this Riyasi attack, they definitely have links with Pakistan. Terrorism in Jammu and Kashmir is a thing that's going on for the last 35 years almost. And in this, these terrorists, the Pakistani establishment, they were very much, I would say, encouraged by then what was happening in Afghanistan, the Afghan jihad. What they would have thought that if they can defeat a world's superpower at that moment, Soviet Union, if they could be defeated by these Taliban and these, terrorists at that point of time who were operating over there. So this Pakistani authorities would have thought that definitely if they can defeat Soviet Union, they can defeat India also. So you can see here what I said. Pakistan and the separatists in Kashmir were encouraged by the success of Afghan jihad. Pakistan thought that if a superpower like USSR could be defeated by Afghan Islamist groups, other such groups could be used to pressure India in Kashmir through mass uprising. So this was the thinking. Of course, in this you can add violence against the minorities, Kashmiri Pandits that I am trying to say. Of course, prominent terrorist actions against prominent personalities. Now, of course, we took some time because this was a new thing for us, but then very soon our army, our counterinsurgency agents and agencies, they started to thwart this action of Pakistan. Now, as I said at the very beginning of the introduction of this today's class, that in this whole thing, Pakistan-based terrorist groups, they completely got the support of their army, their ISI, and absolutely they also got the support of their political establishment, which at that point was dominated by Madam Benazir Bhutto and Mr. Nawaz Sharif, who were taking turns to become Prime Minister. This is the 80s and 90s that I'm talking about. So this Pakistan army, its political class, they all committed themselves to the so-called Kashmir cause. As I said just now, in 80s and early 90s, both Nawaz Sharif and Benazir Bhutto, who had become Pakistan's Prime Minister in turn, they supported this promotion of separatism as far as Kashmir was concerned by their army, their intelligence agency, I said ISI, through the use of terror. Now, I'll take some extra, place here. I'll write here. Please understand. Madam Bhutto had even gone to the extent that she would not talk to India in 1994 until India engaged Pakistan on their own terms. And that's why there was no talk between India and Pakistan in those days. Similarly, when Mr. Nawaz Sharif became the Prime Minister of Pakistan in 1997 for the second time, he did decide to change the Bhutto's policy, tried to engage with India. But then their focus was also with regards to disputes and on that Kashmir being the priority. Now, by mid-90s or late 90s, India had, understood how to tackle this terrorism that was going on in Jammu and Kashmir. Of course, there was heavy toll, lives were lost, normalcy was, disrupted. But then we conducted the assembly elections in Kashmir in 1996 to show that, India would not be cowed down by what Pakistan is trying to do here. After that, as you all know, we always have tried, and let me, just take 1 second of yours. Give me a second. It has gone down. See, as far as India was concerned, we have always believed in diplomacy plus dialogue. And, If you look in the past also, under the Shimla Agreement of 1972, India was fully committed to resolving all the issues peacefully through negotiations. However, in 72, the idea that Pakistan would promote terrorism through Islamist non-state actors under its control had not been contemplated, because I told you this is something that only began around 1989. And thus, once Pakistan is doing this, the whole talk about, this diplomacy, dialogues, they all started to become void. But then, as you all know, Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee's government came, and in 1998, both the sides, they started to talk about bilateral composite dialogue. And in that, one of the points that both the sides decided that they will talk about terrorism and counter narcotics. The problem was Pakistan was never willing to address the issues that India wanted. So Pakistan was least interested in these issues. And this has remained the attitude of Pakistan since then. Now, coming from Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee, then later your next Prime Minister, Mr. Manmohan Singh, and finally Mr. Narendra Modi, throughout this 98 to 2016, all the three Prime Ministers, they have pursued the path of diplomacy as a part of composite dialogue to address Pakistan-sponsored terrorism. Unfortunately, the problem with this diplomatic approach was that the public opinion in India was for military action after an unacceptable terrorist attack or provocative and unacceptable Pakistani action. So, let me give you one prominent example. In 2008, what happened in Mumbai? The Mumbai terrorist attack. Dr. Manmohan Singh then opted out of dialogue process. He tried to garner the diplomatic support of the world. Though the public pressure was to have some kinetic action, some, action like, maybe a small scale war, or I would say an attack, or some sort of military action. This was the public opinion, though Mr. Manmohan Singh did not go for this. Even before this, there was one more example in 2001 when the terrorists had attacked the Indian Parliament. At that moment also, the government of Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee, he had mobilized the armed forces, but then did not go for any war because Parvez Musharraf, then president, had given an assurance that Pakistani territory, under its control would not be used for terrorism against India. Of course, they never kept these words. They only say this. They never kept this word. Now, recently we are talking about the use of preemption. So a lot of talk about diplomacy, dialogue, and now what we are saying is we have actually departed from this diplomacy, and we are talking about military force against Pakistani terrorism, specifically after what had happened in Pulwama 2019. And we did the Balakot aerial strike in 19 and also announced a doctrine of preemption. So now we are ready to take kinetic action against any unacceptable attack, and this is something that is going on. So if I just conclude this and with the last paragraph, after the Riyasi attack, External Affairs Minister Mr. S. Jaishankar expressed the ambitious intention of finding a solution to years-old cross-border terrorism. He could begin the process of putting a curb on Pakistani terror by pointing out to the international community that the first attempt or the first step on an escalatory ladder between nuclear countries is the use of terror. So that has to be controlled by Pakistan. Then only any meaningful talks can happen on this particular issue. Moving ahead to the third topic, economy robust despite global risks. Now, please understand, on this topic, the first thing that you have to understand, a financial stability report has been generated. Who generates this? RBI, and its 29th issue. Discussing about, and I'll take the red pen, discussing about the Indian economy and the financial system. RBI's report says that it is resilient and it is robust. Now, if you see here, India's financial system is robust, resilient, anchored by macroeconomic and financial stability. Some keywords. Remember, macroeconomic, financial stability, these all are the keywords that you can use in your answers. Banks' capital to risk-weighted assets ratio CRAR and CET1 ratios are at this. Similarly, stress tests for credit risk show that SCBs would be able to comply with minimum capital requirements, and global economy, they are facing risk from all these issues. These are the points mentioned here. So what are the great achievements that make our economy robust? So RBI says in its report, banks, they have improved their balance sheets. Banks as well as financial institutions, they were supporting economic activity through sustained credit expansion. So clearly, when the balance sheets become better, when the non-performing assets come down, when the credit expansion goes up, it clearly shows that the economic activities are flourishing as far as the country is concerned. Similarly, according to this report, the capital to risk weighted assets ratio CRAR and the common equity tier 1 ratio of the scheduled commercial banks, they stood at this number at the end of 2024. Similarly, scheduled commercial banks, their gross non-performing assets GNPA, this ratio also fell to a multi-year low of this much, and the net performing NNPA ratio, net non-performing assets, this ratio also declined to this percentage at the end of March 2024. No need to remember exact numbers. If you could have an idea, it's great, but then clearly economy is doing better. Now here there was a point about stress tests. So please remember, macro stress tests were done for the credit risk, and they also said that SCBs would be able to comply with minimum capital requirements under baseline and all that. Apart from this, if you see, these scenarios are stringent conservative assessments under hypothetical shocks, and the results should not be interpreted as forecasts. So that's the other aspect that they are saying. Lastly, slow disinflation. Now, kindly comment, what do you know about disinflation? This is something that you study, in your economics. And RBI notes in its report that global economy was facing heightened risk from prolonged geopolitical tensions. Ukraine is there, Palestine is there, and this elevated public debt and the slow progress being made in the last mile of disinflation. So all this is going through. Moving ahead to the prelims topics. One, India and US in talks for Striker infantry vehicles. You can see the image. Now we have shown it interest in this very small article for prelims. Please remember, interest in Striker infantry vehicles, relatively early stages of talks with US on this, and along with this we are also talking about Javelin anti-tank guided missiles, ATGM. We are also talking about MQ-9B unmanned aerial vehicles, UAV, and GE-414 jet engines. All these talks are going on with USA, and these all talks are based on ICET. Remember, Initiative on Critical and Emerging Technology. So please remember, these are certain, I would say, UAVs and vehicles that we are talking to import from USA. Apart from that, there are some more names mentioned about some, what do you call this, instruments and all. So here it is Similarly, the deal for licensed manufacture of the GE 414 engines by HAL to power the light combat aircraft Mk1A is also in the advanced stage. Please, for prelims only, remember, for example, what exactly is, MQ9B. You should remember that it is a UAV. Similarly, what is Mk1A? Remember, it is a light combat aircraft, because this year's prelims topic, such questions have come. Moving ahead, Bolivian general arrested after failed coup attempt. Now, Bolivia in country in South America. A top general, his name being Byjus Zuniga. He led a coup yesterday to restore so-called democracy. Armored vehicles had rammed the doors of Bolivia's government palace, which was, called by the president as a coup attempt, and then it was quickly retreated. The latest attempt in this South American country, which is facing a lot of, economic crisis. Remember, now the situation is under control, but remember, again I'm saying for prelims that Bolivia, again another country where coup attempt was made, and this is after the months of tension and political fights which is going on between president and one of his top allies in the past. And this all has done what? It has paralyzed government operations, and it is hurting and leading to economic crisis as far as Bolivia is concerned. So do remember this, very, very important. For prelims, that next year you should have an idea that in Bolivia also such an attempt was done to have a coup. Moving ahead, again we have a playbook to handle gestational diabetes better. It's a very lengthy topic. Whatever is in green, that's more than sufficient. You don't have to read anything else. Now please understand, diabetes. Now there are different types of diabetes, type 1, type 2, and there is a diabetes like gestational diabetes. What is gestational diabetes? It refers to hyperglycemia or high blood sugar levels which are first diagnosed during pregnancy. A common medical disorder in pregnancy. It reportedly has a very, very high global prevalence of almost 14%. So you can understand 14% of the pregnant ladies, they get impacted by this. Age, family history of diabetes, high BMI, these are the major risk factor. So it comes as no surprise that the rates are rising alongside a broader crisis of non-communicable diseases, just like obesity, cardiometabolic disorders among women of childbearing age. A lot of time the age at which the female would be going or would be becoming pregnant, the family's history of diabetes, the fact that the BMI would be very, very skewed, all these become reasons that lead to this gestational diabetes. And one more fact is mentioned, up to 31% of type 2 diabetes cases in Paris women are attributable to gestational diabetes. Babies born to women with gestational diabetes are at increased risk not only of short-term perinatal morbidity and mortality, but also of long-term complications like type 2 diabetes, obesity, cardiovascular diseases, and neurodevelopmental disorders. So these are the problems that the women and the children that they would be bearing, they might be facing. See, this year also there was a question on, direct question had come on, fertility rate, total fertility rate, what does it stand for? Similarly, tomorrow if there is any question, what exactly is gestational diabetes, you should be knowing that. Moving ahead, you have second last article, Uttarakhand government to study risks posed by 13 glacier lakes. Now, please understand, Himalayan glaciers were in danger from climatic change. Continued checks are required for safety. Now, in certain areas like lakes in Dharma, Lasarin Ghati and Kutingati Valley in Pithoragarh district and Vasundhara Tal Lake of Dhauliganga Basin in Chamoli district, they are posing a high risk. They are big, from 0.2 square kilometer to 0.5 square kilometer, and they are usually 4,000 meters above sea level. So the studies are being done that what can be the impact of these lakes on the, tomorrow on the people of this area. Because you have to remember, in the past, two major, glacial lake outbursts have happened in Uttarakhand, which led to floods. The first one was in Kedarnath Valley in June 13, and this led to 6,000 deaths. And the other was in Rishi Ganga Valley, that's Chamoli, and this had led in 2021 72 deaths. So please remember, these glacial lakes, they have to be continuously monitored, and that's why agencies like GSI, Geological Survey of India, similarly National Institute of Hydrology, they all are doing the research on this. There was one term that I want you all to remember. This team will be doing a bathymetry study here. See, it's I'll point it out here. Our teams will start a bathymetry study of the five potentially high risk lakes from the first week of July. So remember, this is the study done to analyze how the size of the lakes, what is the size, how are these glaciers formed, how are they melting, and all this. All the correct information about these would be ascertained by this study. Last topic, you can see a mainland Sero has been discovered. So this mainland Sero, as it's mentioned, it's a mammal which appears, as you can see in the picture, a cross between a goat and antelope, and it has been recorded at the lowest elevation beyond Bhutan, its natural home in Assam. So usually Sero is found in Bhutan, but this time we have discovered it in, or this has been observed in Assam also. Let me, So this Sero, with scientific name being Capricornis sumatranus thar, has been observed at 96 meters above the mean sea level at Raimona National Park, which is there in western Assam. Please remember Raimona National Park, where it has been discovered. And why it is so important? Because for the first time within a radius of 1 kilometer from a human habitation, we have discovered it. And you can see clearly there is the pictorial, proof of this. And if you see, according to the International Union for Conservation of Nature, these mainland Sero inhabit areas at altitude of 200 meters to 3000 meters. So they coming to an elevation of 96 meters in itself is a huge thing. Its habitat, it's across the border in Phibitso Wildlife Sanctuary and the Royal Manas National Park in Bhutan. So usually discovered only in Bhutan, but now it has been found in Assam also, which is a very good news. A lone ranger, of course, but then something which is to be, to be very, very happy of. Apart from this, the two mains question for the day. The first one, cross-border terrorism is the biggest point of contention between India and Pakistan. In the light of the above statement, analyze the options for its resolution. 250 words, 15 marker. And the question number 2 is, critically examine the various aspects of the fisherman dispute between India and Sri Lanka. 150 words, 10 marker. So these are the two questions that we see today. And that's all from today's news analysis. Again, we shall meet tomorrow, same time, same place. And till then, goodbye. Thank you.